What's up, everybody? So excited to see you guys. I don't even know if I'm live. I might just be talking to myself, but nonetheless, you guys are the coolest, whether I'm saying that in a recording or not. So awesome to see you guys. It's been an honor to see you guys grow and change and upgrade, and I really believe that running smarter agencies than at least what most people are doing. Speaking of, I have a little quick announcement for those of you guys who would be interested in this. So when I see other people like try and build their agency, especially like the acquisition process, I heard one guru the other day say you got to send 10,000 messages. Like, you'd be lucky if 10% of people open those 10,000 messages. So you're going to send, so 1,000 people will watch those. Then if only a small percentage of those will respond, and then you get a couple of those people on a call, and then you have to do this like 60 to 90 minute song and dance with somebody who, by the way, barely knows who you are and is not all that interested. So they're like 3 out of 10 working together, have that kind of folded arms, and you got to follow this really airtight sales process. And at the end of it, then you invite them to work together and you handle objections. And maybe if you're good, like especially with cold people, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 is probably typical with that. So you contact 10,000 people and do all this work. We figured out a much better way to illustrate this. We're actually doing this in our mastermind right now, is identifying the people who like already moved entire markets and making offers to work with the movers and shakers. And you win 2 ways, because you come out with amazing case studies, and also because they can refer you hundreds of people. So perfect example of this is there was a guy I follow named Justin. He's not part of our mastermind or anything, but he illustrates the strategy nonetheless. What he did is he reached out to Russell Brunson and offered to do like some kind of campaign for them. This was years ago, before he was like super internet famous, but like, you know, still very well known. And he rocked it for Russell. Russell agreed to work together and was part of his Dream 100. And then what ended up happening is Russell referred him hundreds and hundreds of people. But even if Russell had never referred him, like imagine just having a case study of like, here's what we did for Russell Brunson. Like, you win either way. And so what ends up happening is you can get clients and acquisition without all these crazy phone calls, without like chasing people, without just running around harassing people. And all we're doing is making small numbers of offers to very high influential people who like already move the markets. Like, you can send 10,000 messages to try and identify the 20,000 buyers in the market, or you can just go to somebody who's already organized the 20,000 buyers and make an irresistible offer. And then you just have to have one conversation, and you can move your entire business to like 100 plus clients. Ask me how I know, because I've done that more than once. So if you guys are interested in that, the mastermind is like very close to full. And when it's past that point, I just don't have time, as much as I love you guys. So if you're interested in that, reach out now, because I think I might have 1, maybe 2 spots left. Anyways, let's get into the good stuff, the Q&A. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings to you our weekly Q&A. I watched too much wrestling in the 90s. Yeah, hate me, but I don't care. So we got Onar, I don't know how to say that correctly. He says, what is the most frustrating thing to you when it comes to SEO? I don't actually do any SEO anymore, but I'll tell you the 2 biggest frustrations I had after like 7-8 years. Thing number 1 is clients who you have these long talks about ranking, and instead of like you tell them like it's going to take like 10 months to rank, and then like 5 minutes after you start working together, they go, hey, I just Googled myself and I'm not number 1. When am I going to be number 1? And you're like, remember that long talk we had that's going to take some time? Yeah, that talk never lands. The second thing, and actually probably this was the bigger reason I got out of it, is because Google changes the rules constantly. And I remember a friend, he had figured out how to rank really well, and he was doing this in Las Vegas. He owned the limo market. Like, he had all these lead generation sites, and he would generate leads that would go to like for people interested in a limo, and he would sell them to the limo companies. And there was a time he was doing $1 million per month, not per year, per month in leads, so $12 million a year. And then one day Google just changed the algorithm, the whole business went to 0 overnight. And so I realized like building an entire business on Google and SEO is probably a bad idea, because it's a foundation of sand since it's changing landscape. Having said that, there are a lot of benefits to SEO. I'm not shitting on anybody who does it. I know for me that I was trying to use it as the sole way of generating business, and having a sole way of generating business that you don't control, in my opinion, is not a good way to run your business or agency. So there's a little rant about frustrating thing when it comes to SEO. Our man Ricky says, we are currently running conversion ads for our clients in the roofing space where we get leads to fill out name, email, phone number, address, time frame, urgent 1 to 2 weeks, flexible for the project, stage of project, and scope of project. I wanted to ask the experienced lead gen experts out there, do you think if we reduce the field amounts to basic info but include a phone verification step where the prospect has to reply to a text to confirm their number, that it would be a better option? Also, anyone including the phone number directly in the ad copy for those homeowners that prefer to phone directly rather than going through a form funnel. Thanks in advance. Ricky, so this is kind of a little bit of a loaded topic because chances are part of the reason you're trying to qualify the leads so hard in the form is because you're getting these roofers, and this happens in every local business where they say, all your leads are bad. And there's different reasons businesses say their leads bad. Sometimes the agencies actually do bring bad leads, meaning they're unqualified or they just run ads that have nothing to do with what the business sells. But by and large, what I've experienced, it's local businesses just suck at closing, meaning they don't answer the phone. They don't know how to answer basic questions. They don't know how to invite somebody to work together, or also known as close. Although on the phone, it can be a really soft close. It can just be like, would you like a consultation? Would you like us to come give you an estimate, right? It's a very soft close, and yet most businesses can't do those basic things. And so there's a lot of different ways to handle them, but I don't think the best way of dealing it is by having a form with a lot of complexities. We've actually got a guy in our mastermind right now who's a genius in his own right. His name is Ross. And what Ross is doing is in the lawyer space is he has a team of stay-at-home moms. I think he pays them like $5 or $10 a phone call. And when they get a lead, the stay-at-home mom calls them and qualifies them. And then if they're good, they live transfer them right away. And I think that's a better model because what they really struggle with is actually converting that traffic. So instead of trying to get more front-end details on the form to qualify better, if you also include helping them convert leads, because I always say there's different pay scales in the agency. I just spit a little, that happened. There's different pay scales a little bit in the agency. One of those is if you generate leads. By and large, believe it or not, businesses don't actually struggle with leads. You realize this the second you turn on leads and they can't close any of them. It's really a conversion problem in disguise. So generating leads is one price with one market. Helping them actually make sales is another price. And often the difference between those two is just helping them a little bit with that conversion process. It doesn't have to be some superhero thing. It can just be something like Ross is just having a 5-minute phone call where somebody vets them and kind of warms them up. But if you focus on actually helping them convert to sales instead of trying to get more information about the person, what you'll find is you'll be able to charge a lot more money and get clients a lot easier and be able to get them better results. And it'll probably put more onus on you, but that's why you want to as I talked about in version 2.0, build a scalable system. Richard, just in time. Richard says, I want to build a business that is easier to do internationally, living internationally. Do you think that building a copywriting business would be a better way to go than SEO? I'm going to give you Richard, the worst answer in history because it's very lawyerly. Lawyers say this all the time to every question. No matter what question you ask them, the answer is, it depends. And the biggest thing I think it depends on is your skill set. I always say this, there's a million ways for you to be successful, but there's not a million ways to build an agency in a way that you actually enjoy doing it. Part of the reason, by the way, I do this stuff for real is 5 years ago, we had a little mastermind in person. I was showing people the webinar system that I created and helping them build their own version of it. And it just happened to be a lot of agency owners. I didn't plan it that way. It was just a room of maybe 10, 12 people, and probably 6, 7, 8 of them were agency owners, and then they had all these questions for me, and I just loved doing it. And so part of the reason I do this is because I really like you guys. I really like hanging out with you. And so it's easier for me to grow this business than other businesses I've done in the past because it's just I just like talking to you. There's if I wake up and I get a message from you guys, it's not fuck, I got a client message. So that's my way of saying, those are different hammers. The other thing I would say too is both SEO and copywriting are hammers. You want to focus on a specific income or outcome, a result you're going to create and a problem you solve. I noticed that, by the way, Richard, when you sent me that message by email about just kind of trying to tweak your offer. It was very hammer centric. SEO is a hammer. Nobody wakes up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night going, I need SEO, right? Like, it's just not how they think. Like, a really great example that Corey Vandenberg's runs a really awesome, like, multi-million-dollar a year agency called Clixy in our agency space, in our lawyer space, I should say, sorry. And one of the things they do is they don't sell SEO, even though like that's their deliverable, that's their hammer. Is what they sell to lawyers is like, I can get you cases for this much per signed case. So if you pay us this much a month, we will get you cases, in his case, for $500 a signed case. Most big law firms are happy to pay $1,000 per signed case. So $500 is like half price as far as they're concerned. But it's the outcome they're buying. The signed cases for a set price. The fact that it's done through SEO and all that is kind of irrelevant. So that's my way of saying, like, you know, I know you've talked about the contractors and stuff, is like focus on an outcome they want. And then your hammer is really just a secondary thought. It's like, for me, like my hammer a lot of times has historically been Facebook ads. And I've also, like, you know, done SEO, but like I don't sell Facebook ads. I say, like, you know, we're going to get you motorcycle cases using Facebook ads. The using Facebook ads is just a little afterthought to make it believable. But what they're interested in is that outcome. So that's my way of saying, like, those two things will make it easier, is do one that's fun, provide an outcome that they want, and you'll be amazed, because it does take some practice and dialing in to find an outcome they want, because there is an element of it that's like, especially if you don't start with a converting offer, where you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and a lot of it doesn't stick. But when you do, you'll really, really notice that you have an outcome they want. I'll give you an example of this. When I was first trying to break into the lawyer space, I was trying to like go into LinkedIn groups and post like little articles and hand raisers and comments and things like that to get traction. By and large, I got fucking ignored. Like, I'd get 0 comments and 0 likes, and nobody would sign up to my email list. Yeah, I know. Shed a little tear for that notion. And what ended up happening is, after a while, I maybe would get 1 like on something, but for the most part, I was being ignored. And then one day I had a post that was something along the lines of like 7 secrets of the world's most successful attorneys, the people who've built the 8 and 9-figure practices, something like that. And then I woke up and I came into LinkedIn to check my stats the next day, and there were like 200 likes and comments. So like it blew up, right? Like it was like, all I did is notice that. That became my offer. And so like when I ran Facebook ads for many, many years, that was my hook. When I ran a webinar, that was my hook. When I ran like in-person speeches, that was our hook. When I did more like LinkedIn outreach, that was our hook, right? So it does take a little trial and error to get to finding an outcome they want. One of the things that'll help you shortcut that a lot, I found, is just going to communities where they talk and listening to the problems and stuff where they get stuck. Because almost always, whatever problem they have, the outcome is the opposite, right? Like if somebody says, like, I hate doing a gazillion sales calls, then the outcome they want is no sales calls at all, right? So it's like it's almost always like pretty obvious. So I hope that's helpful to you, my man. Benjamin says, we got 5 banned accounts as of yesterday and today, and our agency page also got banned. Anyone have a resource? Benjamin, this is one of the reasons I've been talking for the short-term solution is appeal, and you may get your account back. But the bigger long-term solution, and this is the much more important piece, is this is why you don't want to like just generate leads on Facebook and leave them on Facebook, because they can shut you down and close your business overnight. So there's 3 steps that I suggest taking. Step number 1 is start generating leads that go to your own email list or some kind of asset that you control. Like if you have an offer that's been working for 6 months, you want to have your own traffic that you can control. So like for me, I do, some YouTube stuff and I have a Facebook group, but most of those people, not all of them, but a large percentage of them are on my email list. And that's because if YouTube ever shut me down or Facebook ever shut down, I could still have a way to connect with those people. So that's going to be really important. The other thing is diversify, my man. Like, you don't want to be overly dependent on any one traffic source. I remember one of my billionaire friends, and not that you're going to start your agency this on day one, but he says, my friend who's almost a billionaire, I should say, he's not actually a billionaire yet, but says, I like to have at least 5 traffic sources for my business, and I don't want any of those 5 traffic sources to be more than 33%. Almost always what's working on one platform will work on another with a few tweaks and modifications. Sometimes you just got to change how you start the conversation. There was a third thing I wanted to say about that, but I forgot what it is. But I'll tell you, if you focus on creating traffic you can control and diversify, Facebook ads will be less of an issue. Maybe the third thing was just to appeal it. David, what kind of service that you can offer for agency owners. David, when you're looking for like what kind of service to offer people, I think the first starting step is to always go and listen to that market and see what problems and challenges, not just to see what the problems are, but to see how they say it in their own words. Because it's going to be really, really key for actually like dialing in an offer, because I see this all the time where people skip this step and then they end up selling services that the market doesn't fucking want, right? Like nobody wakes up and says what the market needs right now is another local SEO agency. And if you're the 10,001st person to start an SEO agency, it's hard work, right? Like for example, when I started this shit in 2007, it was businesses were just then starting to really get email pitched SEO. These businesses that have been established for like 15, 20, 30 years, they've gotten 100 messages a week about SEO for like 15 years. So like, 100 messages week 1, then 200 total week 2, 300 week 3. That's 5,200 messages a year. Multiply that by 15 years. Some of these people have gotten 50, 100,000 fucking SEO messages. So if you send it after it, and I'll give you an example of why this is so important, okay? In my local hometown, there's a lot of auto body shops. I don't know why. I think it's a lot of just like car mechanics hate working for somebody else, so they figure I want to start my own shop. The problem is the market doesn't need another auto body shop. So what ends up happening is all these people like sell a difficult service. Now my last girlfriend, she ended up, this is kind of funny because I was like, hey, what's your dream car? We were starting to like get really financially set. And I was like, what's your dream car? Let's go buy it. And she said, a Beetle Bug. So we went and bought a Volkswagen Beetle. Don't ask me why that would be anyone's dream car. And as soon as we had a couple of problems with it, we would go to some of these mechanics and shops, and they said, hey, we don't touch Volkswagens because they're specialty parts and they're just complicated. And they referred us to a guy who ran a Volkswagen-only deal like car repair auto body shop, and he was fucking insanely busy without any formal advertising because he was filling a niche within the market. And so what most people do is they start a business because they want to do it. And then they end up being like the auto body shops where they have hard to sell shit because there's 500 fucking auto body shops within, 10 miles kind of thing, or 15, 16 kilometers for if we're doing metric. And what you want to do instead is be the one guy who has that niche thing that everybody wants and fulfills like something. I'm just the Volkswagen guy. And so what I'm saying is, we have a video, by the way, on the YouTube channel called The Unfair Sales Advantage. It's a free training, and it shows you how to go find exactly what the market is looking for. And if you do that, what you'll find is, again, it's called The Unfair Sales Advantage. If you go through and watch that and follow the methodology, you'll end up having something unique that your market actually wants. And if you have something unique that your market wants, you just make your whole life like shit tons easier, in my experience. And then you'll know exactly what to sell agency owners because they'll tell you in their own words. Tamer says, Frankie, can't get enough of your insights and thoughts. Keep up the great info. Do you have examples of the Loom videos you've sent out to prospects you could share with us? Tamer, I mentioned this in the comments, but I wanted to kind of elaborate on this. I don't typically send out my Loom videos other than like kind of to our mastermind peeps because I've just been ripped off so many times. Like I've had people word for word steal my shit. Sometimes like I've had like the 7 things to do blank, and I've had somebody steal the 7 things and then just add in one sentence as an 8th thing and claim it as their own. Like I've had people just rip off my shit, like straight up steal it. And for that reason, like the Loom videos are a little bit of a secret sauce, so I don't give them out. But there is a free training on the YouTube channel for how to make your own. It's called, I don't know, if you just search Beyond Agency Profits Training Loom videos, you'll find it. Here's the key with it, though. I wanted to help you guys understand like why Loom videos work. So, firstly, there's a couple factors in play. The first factor is that like basically the more money somebody has, the more busy and the more successful they are, the less time they have for a 60, 90-minute phone call, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. So like really busy people are very phone call and sales call resistant because they just it's the time risk more than it is like, hey, I'm going to have to spend money on this call. Because if they just took every sales call, they'd never have time to get anything done. So sales calls appeal more to like lower income prospects. And I'm not saying everybody who gets on a sales call is broke, but for the most part, like broke people will get on a gazillion sales calls. Busy, successful people are very, very like I don't know, just much more protective over their time. So it's designed to appeal to people with money. That's the first thing, is understand. Now understand the second thing is, typically what happens in a sales call is you get on the phone together and there's like a 5-10 minute period where you have to build some rapport and you have to find a reason to like each other, because if you don't do that, they won't open up to you and they won't be honest and they won't tell you what's really going on in their business. So you have to like spend 5-10 minutes getting some rapport. And then there's the like, hey, you talk about your problems, and then typically, at least the sales call structure I followed, this is the longest period of time where you spend a bunch of time determining what their problem is and whether or not it's something you can solve. Then at some point, you will transition to the solution, and you probably spend a lot less time talking about the solution than you do the problem, but you're like, hey, what would it look like if that's fixed? And you kind of contrast those two things. And then what's up happening at that point is you're going to recap, hey, here's everything you've told me, you've got this problem and you want this solution. Does that sound correct? And then you say yes. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make an offer for them, and you're going to describe what you would do for them. And then if you're lucky, there'll be very little objections, but sometimes there are, and so they'll tell you, well, I got to talk to my cousin, brother. Oh, that sounds like a lot of money. I don't know if I can afford that. Will this work for me? All those kind of things, right? You get those kind of things, and if you handle those, then it may end up in some credit cards and some high fives. And this whole thing, typically, I know they say, like, schedule an hour on the calendar, and people say, oh, let's jump on a 45-minute strategy session. Successful calls, in my experience, typically go 90 minutes. Maybe you guys do them faster, but a lot of it, like, to really, really dive into what the person is trying to do and getting it right, 60 to 90 minutes, I would say, is much, much more typical, because people like to talk and they don't always have someone to listen to them. Now, here's the thing, is if you understand, there's different, like, milestones that are reached. There's 4 in particular, and there's things they're wondering to themselves in the sales call. So the first thing they're wondering is, once you get past the rapport stage and you talk about those problems and what the outcomes would look like, they're wondering, what kind of outcomes could I expect with this thing, right? Like, so if they're going to hire you for SEO, they want to know what kind of outcome they can get. If they're going to hire you for Facebook ads, they want to know what kind of outcome. So even after all that problem and talk, they want to see if that, like, it fits what they're trying to do. So they're looking at the problem or outcome. The second thing they're going to wonder is your service specifically going to work for me, right? So, yeah, okay, I can see why that would work, but will that work for us in our situation, right? They want to know whether, like, they personally would benefit. Then at some point, they're going to want to know, okay, I can see how you could potentially solve that problem. How does it work? And that's the question they're going to ask themselves next. And then the fourth thing they're going to wonder is, how much, right? Like, if you've gotten past the point of, like, okay, we've gotten a result that I want, I believe this would work for me, I can see how it can work. The next thing they want to know is, like, it's very logical. What would it cost? So all we're doing in a Loom video is we're moving through those 4 milestones way fucking faster. It's like the 80-20 of a sales call, is we're saying, this is the problem and this is the outcome we can solve. Bing, right? Like, if you're a personal injury lawyer, I can bring you a motorcycle case. Bing. And then we're saying, this will work for you if you are in this situation, right? Like, if you can close on the phone and you're willing to spend for some Facebook ads, this will work for you. And we're very clear. So, like, instead of having to spend 45 minutes on a phone to get to those points. By the way, all you're doing on a sales call when they talk about their problems is they're giving you a general thing, and you're going more and more specific until you can have, like, a specific thing you can say, okay, this is what's happening in your reality. So we do that in 30 seconds, what used to take 45 minutes. And then they want to know, how does it work? And this is the thing that's missing from most agencies, is they talk a lot about my secret sauce, my 4-step system, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but nobody gives a fuck about your 4-step proprietary system. They just want to know, how does it work? Oh, okay, so you run some Facebook ads and you get some people to this page, and okay, and then you send them some emails. I can see how that can work. That's all they want to know, right? Like, just give me a logical, believable reason. Most of these people, by the way, are too busy to do it themselves. So, like, yeah, like 1 or 2 people might take your system and try and, like, duplicate it, which they will do unsuccessfully anyway. But most of them are just want to know enough to believe you. So we keep it high level. And this is probably the longest part of it, is they need to believe your shit's going to work. Believable plan, 3 to 5 step plan. And then they want to know how much it costs. And most agencies hide behind this number. I wrote a little bit about this in version 2.0 of the book. But if you use something called the IVQ formula, you can mention your price anywhere. And for those of you guys who haven't read 2.0 version of the book, you should. But if you haven't, I'll give you a little shortcut. IVQ stands for Investment Value Qualifier. And it comes from the thing. The reason why people don't they hide behind their price is because price always needs to be contextualized for value. If I say a car is $5,000, is that a good deal or a bad deal? And the answer is, it depends on what fucking kind of car, right? So like, price needs to be contextualized with value. If I say, well, it's a 1975 used Toyota that runs like a piece of shit, that's not a good deal. But if I say it's a brand new Ferrari, that's going to be a different deal. It's like, shit, I better go buy that car, right? So you need to always contextualize price with value and then qualify like who actually benefits from it. So that's like, I go into more detail in the book, but that's the short version. So that's all we're doing in a Loom video is we're actually, I would say we're even taking this deeper in the first step. We're showing them an outcome that they want, and we're actually doing a demonstration to say like, I can create this outcome for you. Then we're saying this will work for you if, and then we're saying here's how it works, and then we're saying here's how much it costs. And if you do that, you can do an 80-20 of a sales call in 5 minutes, because those are all the things that are actually wondering. So I created the training so you guys can make your own and not have to like, not that you would, but just so nobody else steals my shit. But having said that, you can always just send it over if you want a little feedback on it. David says, just finished reading the book. Amazing work, Frankie fan. Just wondering about one idea, though, and I'm sure someone can explain it to me. In the book, there are multiple examples of law firms or any other business not contacting their previous customers with relation to the business that can come from referrals. I totally agree with it. But how do you do this for a client? I mean, if you ask them if they contacted their previous customers, why wouldn't they do it themselves? Or is it because they focus on large clients who simply don't have time or trust you with the copy and everything? I started my digital marketing agency when I was 17. I was fascinated when I started reading the book because everything I did was wrong. I was selling a hammer and Instagram growth. And with that, I was constantly looking for new clients, but spending majority of my time working on the website and polishing everything. The only thing I did almost correctly as I did was white labeling for one agency one time. A few years later, I decided to rebrand, start fresh with a niche, with a special service, together with reading some books I've slowly building again. Just in the process of creating an irresistible offer, figuring out how to deliver, might take on someone as a trial to test out. Again, big thank you. Haven't read a book in a long time where I would not be sold anything every now and then. There's some links in the book, although I think they're quite valuable and aren't just a simple buy my course. David, my man, that is an awesome comment, dude. I appreciate you. Couple things. Firstly, since you mentioned you're kind of like restarting your agency, I've restarted my agency like 4 different times over 15 years, and each iteration gets better, so it's never a bad thing. Like sometimes what you realize, like for example, I have a lot of people who are in the mastermind right now who have scaled to a certain point, often like $10,000 to $30,000, and then they realize the structure they built isn't scalable, and so they actually have to tear it down a little bit in order to rebuild it way past where they're at. Not necessarily like at the like all in one go, but they have to like actually let go some of the clients they have in some form, and it's a little bit tricky. So each iteration gets better. That's what I'm saying. Like you have the benefit of like wisdom and experience. Now, having said that, your question is, why don't they just contact their own customers? There are lots of reasons, and the biggest reason, I shouldn't say the biggest reason. There's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is they just think. They know what I do, right? Like if I go to a restaurant and eat good food, they know I'm here. They'll come in if they want my food. And for the most part, they just leave it to the customer to do. And you would be amazed that if you just get proactive instead of reactive and make an offer, they'll come in. Another reason is they're really busy. So I'm actually working a little bit with Jay Abraham's team to market to his customers. Jay Abraham is a much better, smarter, bigger marketer than I am and understands this stuff way better than I do. But nonetheless, he's just too fucking busy, right? Like he's got enough time in a day to do 3 things. He's mostly building his new audience. He's speaking and doing events and conferences and things like that. And he doesn't have time to like market to his back end, so he needs good people to do it. So even the people who know this stuff don't do it. Another reason is when they send him stuff, it's just boring shit. Like, so for example, like maybe about 1% of attorneys will contact their past clients and they'll just put them in an email newsletter. And the email newsletter is boring as fuck, right? It says like, Bill 75217 passed through Congress today. Like, nobody gives a fuck, right? It's very different than like, hey, we got a special offer for you guys to come back. The other thing too is they don't know how to do this creatively. So I'll give you an example. One of my mentors used to say, if anybody referred 2 people or more in his law firm, once a year, he would invite them to a steak dinner, all the people who had referred multiple people to his law firm. And it was just a thank you dinner. And he always said, if they referred 2 people and I brought them to a steak dinner, next year they sent 4. right? It always you would be amazed though that like businesses don't understand that there's anything they can do in that process, and that's the thing is they become like really passive. And I'll give you the easiest example to wrap your head around. You've been to 1 million restaurants in your life, presumably. When has a restaurant ever fucking made an offer for you as a customer to come back? In my experience, the answer is never. But if they just said, like, I saw this on one of those shows like Bar Rescue, where all he would do is hand him a little coupon. He would come over, the owner would have a little conversation. Oh, you guys tried the chicken? Do you like it? Oh, it's great. Okay. I can't wait for you to try the steak. Here's a little coupon for next time, so when you come try the steak. Again, setting the stage to make an offer to come back. You can be active in that process. Businesses aren't. And so that's the biggest reason is when you understand that like that's all the value, then you work at that point of the business because it's just easier. Sean says, has anyone ever converted their niche agency to a white labeling service agency and had success? Sean, yes. My first agency was almost entirely a white label SEO agency, which meant I did it for website designers, mostly, who wanted to like offer SEO to their clients, but didn't necessarily want to do SEO. And so they could say, hey, we can sell you an all-in-one website and SEO package. I would deliver it. I would send out the reports and do the phone calls through their branding, so it would look like I'm just an extension of their company and, handle all the customer service and all that. And they dug it. So it definitely can be done. I'll tell you a couple of things that make white labeling easier. The first is understanding movers and shakers who have like a lot of business. The biggest risk you run to them is reputation. So instead of saying like, let me be your all-in-one white label solution, always start with one client for a defined period of time. So for me, it would be like, hey, just give me one of your clients for 30 days and I'll show you that I can actually rank their shit, because they can have hundreds of clients, but it doesn't mean they want to give you them all, because if you make them look stupid, they lose all their business. So instead of like risking the reputation, what you do is just say like, do one person for like 30 days, or do one person for a small, like in other words, a trial assignment. Like do that and you'll be amazed that you can get in the door in white labeling. That's the big secret, I think, with white labeling and doing it successfully and getting a whole bunch of business. Radu, what do you guys use to communicate with clients? Slack, SMS, email. I know a lot of people like Slack, so I'm not saying this is the way, this is just my way. What I found is that after years and years of doing this, I used to send people all kinds of reports and complicated shit, and now I just do something called the drive-by update. The drive-by update is basically, it's a 2-minute Loom video, and in the Loom video it says, here's what we're doing for you, here's why we're doing it, here's how it's going, and here's what we can expect next. And I reset expectations in that last step. And that's basically it. Those are my communication with clients. A little 2-minute video. I get out. I look like I do right now. And I just, hey, man, good to see you. I just want to show you really quickly. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing all this. Here's how it's going. Here's the numbers. Here's the important stuff. Here's what we can expect going forwards. And it just gets clients on the same page in like 2 minutes. I found that to be the best way. We send our stuff out every second Friday. And this is, being proactive like this is how we get rid of all the meetings and all those kind of things. Not saying it's the only way it can be done, but it's worked for us to not have to do meetings and all that shit. Frankie says, how do you cold call for your agencies? What's your way in? What's your pitch? Frankie, I don't cold call for many, many years because I figured out just a much better way to do that. Having said that, I think the best guy to listen to on cold calling is a guy named Ari Gelper. And one of the things Ari talked about that really was kind of mind-blowing for me, and I've taken this over to email and other things, he says, when you're being pitched by a business, there's certain things they say and do that give away the fact that they're about to like send you a generic pitch. I'll give you an example. They call on the phone, and if I say, hi, my name's Frankie Finn, and I'm calling from company XYZ, and the reason I'm calling today is because, which by the way that's the number one script most people use. If I start like that, where I say, hey, my name's Frankie Finn, I'm from company XYZ, and the reason I'm calling today is, you already know it's a cold call and it's a pitch, and so defenses go up before you even get to the pitch. Customers do not do this, by the way. Customers just call up and say, hey, what time you guys open till? They don't say, hey, my name's Frankie Finn, and I'm calling from ABC Road, and the reason I'm calling today is I want to know, when are you open till? They just directly ask questions. And so what Ari suggested is, to get in, is to mirror the language of the customer, and so what he would do is, hey, can I talk to the person in charge of the marketing issues? Can I talk to the person in charge of the marketing department? Or who handles the issues related to growing the website? And often, because you don't introduce yourself and you don't act like a salesperson, you don't give away your thing, they will help you in that process. So that's the biggest thing. And then the best thing to do is just have a conversation to see if you actually have a tool that can help solve a problem they have. And so the best thing to say is like, hey, I noticed this. Do you guys have this problem? Would it be worth us having a conversation right now about it? And if the answer is no, like, don't harass them. Like, there's nothing to do at that point. So that's, I would say, check out Ari Gelper's stuff. I think he's the best on cold calling. And you can use all his stuff in cold email, by the way. It works just as well. Vincent. Hey, everyone. I'm taking up the 7-day book challenge by Darby Rollins and Zachariah Stratford. I'm trying to nail my book outline. I'm considering using this structure for breaking down the topics in my chapters. I'm not going to read the whole structure here. Important to note, these elements won't be mentioned literally, but will serve as the framework for ensuring myself that I give my readers my best value possible. Any feedback or reflections would be much appreciated. Vincent, I wrote a book, so I have a little bit of insight on writing books. And again, I want to tell you, this is the Frankie Finn way. I'm not saying this is the only way, but I'll tell you, the big secret for my book, by the way, was that when I wrote the book, I had 13 years of experience doing this shit. So I say, like, it actually only took me a month, start to finish, to write the book. But it took me 13 years of, like, being in the trenches to write the book. So assuming you have some, like, valuable insights and stuff like that, I'll tell you what I did to write this. The first thing I did is I just broke down the subtopics that were important. So for me, it was like setting expectations. How do you get clients? How do you manage them? How do you hire people? Things like that, right? So I broke down, and I had, I think, 14 topics that I thought were really, really critical to running an agency. I've since expanded that to 16, although I guess one of those chapters is just a review. But I wrote down those things. And then what I did is I sat with those topics and I said, what order would it make sense to do this? And this is kind of the skeleton of the book, if you will. And then what I did from there is I walked into the forest in Germany and I took out my phone. I guess phones aren't like this anymore. I had my phone like this. And I hit record on a podcasting app that I had, like just an MP3 recorder. And I went, topic number 1. And I started talking, here's how you set expectations, and here's what's important, blah, 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 blah. And I spoke about it for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I did this with each of the topics. I went for like a 3, 4, 5-hour walk in the forest and did that. And then I recorded all the chapters. And then I uploaded them to a website called rev.com, which does transcriptions. I think I spent like maybe $100, $150, something like that. They transcribed the whole book. Now, there were lots of like spelling errors and typos, but basically I had the framework of a book. And so the biggest amount of time I spent was just in the editing, cleaning up the language and the formatting and bold titles and shit like that. But that's how I wrote my book, is I wrote the skeleton, then I talked it out, and then I transcribed it, and then I edited the transcription. And so that I found is the best way, at least for me. For people like me, it's easier to talk than it is for me to write. If I had to sit at a screen and type it out, it would have taken me forever. So it was a lot easier just to say it and then edit it. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Vincent says, would you consider working for free to get that first and rather crucial successful case study? Vincent, I've heard a lot of people say no on this. I am all for this, hey, I'll do it for free and prove it to you. Because the biggest thing that stops people from getting traction is that they represent too much risk to a business. And so if you remove the risk, you'll get business a lot faster. I have a post actually that's going to come out later today that is about this very topic, but businesses have no way of evaluating you. Now, having said that, where I think most people screw this up is they just beg any dentist, please work with me. Or they beg any lawyer, please work with me. Or any e-commerce store, please work with me. What I do that's different is we identify the movers and shakers in the market and then say, hey, I have something of value that I think would be really fucking awesome for you, but the truth of the matter is it's unproven. And so I would love to create some value for you, and all I want from you is an awesome case study. And instead of just doing that to like any random, for lack of a better term, any random dipshit, because most businesses, 8 out of 10 businesses aren't going to be worth your time to work with anyway. I focus on like a real hardcore influencer. And then what happens is, like when I have a case study, it's not just any case study, it's somebody who's relevant and important in the market. So for example, I mentioned this earlier in the beginning, And this is probably like a little bit where I'm going to finish here. But there's a guy I follow named Justin. Justin runs a bunch of Facebook ads. He did this with Russell Brunson. This was his big break. He reached out to Russell Brunson and said, let me give you a free thing for a case study. And then Russell ended up referring him hundreds and hundreds of people, and it blew up his business. But he didn't just beg any random fucking coach, please let me do a case study for you. He reached out to a mover and a shaker. So this is like a big twist from how most people are doing it. Most people are like, hey, please, random dentist, like, can I just work with you and get a case study? I'll give you a trial for free for 2 weeks. And then they don't end up staying along. And it's often just because the client would never have made a good client in the first place. Even if they paid you, they wouldn't have made a good client. Like, there's lots of bad clients who will pay for a little bit. So that's my way of saying, like, if you're going to give away free shit, do it very strategically, because like having a Russell Brunson case study is way better than just having like one random coach. And here's what we did. So that actually leads a little bit to what I was talking about in the beginning. For those of you guys who missed the little announcement, this is my way of saying that we're doing this actually in our mastermind right now. It's kind of hacking the game, because like I said, I saw another coach the other day, an agency guy, an agency guru, telling people send 10,000 messages a day. I'm sure that works. I'm not knocking it, but I don't want to personally send 10,000 messages a day. And then of those 10,000, only 1,000 open. A couple of those will schedule calls. Those calls will be difficult because they're completely cold and have no idea who the fuck you are. And then you got to, follow this like rigid sales process. And if you're lucky, you'll close because of their ice cold traffic. You might close 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10. And then eventually you got to hire a salespeople. And then you got to manage salespeople. And like, that's, to me, just sounds like a lot of fucking work. What we do is we identify the movers and shakers in the market. We have a like really simple system for doing that in an hour. In fact, the VA can actually identify all the names of people. Then we send a letter into the mail to make a very specific offer to work with those people. And it's just an irresistible offer. That's the formula. It allows us to contact a lot less people, but do it much more strategically. Like I said to the other guy, if you contact Russell Brunson, you're going to move the whole funnel space way faster than any amount of like cold email. And so we're able to like basically like blow up agencies like a lot faster and a lot easier by doing that. And the other thing is, like I said, even if Russell Brunson doesn't end up, or whoever that person is for you in your market, doesn't send you 100 referrals, which they often do, even if they don't, like how much better is your business going to be with a case study from like somebody with that name and stature? So I've done this in multiple industries now, but now we're kind of doing it more formulaic, where we're identifying like the top peeps. Spend a VA an hour or two identifying the top peeps. We have a standardized letter. We send them in the mail. We get a chance to work together. We have a little 30-second engagement. You got to rock the 30-day engagement, I should say. And then when you do that, like, your business blows up real fast. And you don't have to do all the bullshit prospecting and chasing that everybody else does. So like I said, if you guys are interested, the mastermind is like so damn close to full. But if you're interested in that, reach out. I'll send you a video with like just details and stuff on what it may do for you. Other than that, my peeps, love you guys. That's all I got. May the force be with you.